Hi all, in this video I just want to tell a quick story about milk, breakfast cereal and breakfast in itself. The idea that breakfast may even be an invented meal, but it's mainly talking about breakfast cereal and milk. The first thing I want to say is in regards to milk. Now, most of the world's population is lactose intolerant. That is, they can't drink milk, haven't drunk milk, and drinking milk will make you sick. When I say most of the world's population, it's more than 50% for sure. I don't know what percentage. Definitely all through South and Central America, Asia I think, definitely the Pacific region, New Guinea, all those sorts of places, never really drank milk. And if you never drank milk, then you're lactose intolerant and quite often you would be made sick. Now, one reason for that was that these areas simply didn't have animals to make milk. I think cows and goats come from the Middle Eastern region, so perhaps through the Middle East on into Europe, there was more milk drinking in those areas. Of course, England had dairy cows and so forth, but the rest of the world basically never had milk producing animals, were lactose intolerant, and even today, I think most people in the world are lactose intolerant to one degree or the other. Okay, having said that, milk became, this like a myth that milk is like a food source. It's not really. Milk became a major issue in the world as a modern food source post-World War II. The story starts in America, like most stories, then spreads around the world. Post-World War II, everyone's rich, America's developed and so forth, everyone's got TVs, and what happens is that the TV ads, the propaganda, the brainwashing comes in to push breakfast cereals and cornflakes. Now what happened was Kellogg, who was a real person, he invented cornflakes. And they virtually invented a whole meal, breakfast. You've got to have cornflakes for breakfast. This was all, this is just brainwashing on TV. So what are cornflakes? Cornflakes was a waste byproduct from the cornfields, because growing corn's massive in America, probably the #1 producer. Cornflakes was from the waste byproducts of the corn industry. And what are cornflakes? A tiny, tasteless, little dry, husky, probably no nutrition to it whatsoever. What's a cornflake? It's nothing. It's a ridiculous food. So how do you eat cornflakes? Milk. So here's now the first whammy is to push cornflakes onto the population. The second whammy comes in to push milk onto the population. So to have your breakfast cereal, you've got to pour milk all over it just to make it edible, okay, to make it moist and you can eat it. Now, how do you make that tasteless mush of cornflakes and milk appetizing? You've got to pour sugar all over it now, okay? So now there's a third whammy of sugar. I plan to do a future video to talk about animal fats, salt, and sugar, caffeine, alcohol, and cigarettes. It's a major subject, but I want to get this over and done with because it doesn't relate. It is related to that whole theme of how they create, of how they, the corporations, the governments, the media, and so forth, businessmen, smart business strategies and so forth, just create like a whole food, brainwash it with ads on TV, and then everyone's suddenly going to have, got to have breakfast, got to have cornflakes, got to pour milk all over the cornflakes to make it soft so you can eat it. Now you've got to pour sugar all over it to make it appetizing, to make that tasteless mush appetizing. So basically you've got milk, which most of the world doesn't drink. You don't need to drink milk. I'm not here to rant against milk, it's just an overall point and an overall concept I want to make. Then you've got breakfast cereals. Now after cornflakes, it then developed, other companies came in to market their breakfast cereals, all packed with sugar, all bad for you and all directed towards children. Rice Bubbles, Cocoa Pops, Fruit Loops, all this sort of stuff, all packed with sugar, all with milk over it, maybe you can add sugar to it, but they're all packed full of sugar, okay? So you can see how it was basically this, I hate to use the word conspiracy, But if you want to use that term, this massive advertising campaign to get us to eat cornflakes, which is just a tasteless little dry husky thing, that's when milk became a huge multi-billion, and they're all multi-billion dollar industries, mind you. Milk, the dairy industry, breakfast cereals, cornflakes, Kellogg became a billionaire, and of course sugar as well, which I plan to talk about in a future video. Sugar, the #1 enemy of your health. It's not fats, it's not salt, it's sugar. It's a myth that the establishment, science, the health experts and governments have pushed onto us for 50 years, that animal fats or fats and salt is bad for you. That's a myth and a lie that still persists to this day. Sugar's our #1 enemy. So you had cornflakes pushed onto us, you had milk pushed onto us, and then sugar. So there's a triple whammy right there. The thing about milk is that if you knew where milk comes from, it should turn you off drinking milk. Think about it this way. Milk is designed for baby cows. So why do we drink it? We don't even drink human milk after we're babies. So why are we drinking cow's milk? Now think about this for a moment. Imagine we were drinking human milk, and not cow's milk. And human milk was produced and farmed and packaged into bottles, and we drank it in flavoured milk on our cereal and everything. Do that as a thought experiment and it should turn you off cow's milk. How do you make human milk? I don't mean to talk about the birds and the bees here. Yeah, you're pregnant. Women get pregnant, your boobs get bigger, start making milk whether you like it or not, and it comes out. It's got to be, it's got to come out. Okay? Now, how did we get cow's milk? That's what happens in the dairy industry. It's a disgusting, horrible industry. They make cows pregnant, locking cows up into small cages. The babies, once they have the babies, are ripped away from them and slaughtered, and they get big suckers stuck on their tits to suck out the milk for their whole lives. Pregnancy, forced pregnancy after forced pregnancy. They might roam around a small field perhaps, big suckers to take the milk out, then they're pumped full of antibiotics and so forth to make big swollen udders and fat and so forth to make more milk. Imagine it was humans. Forced pregnancy, let's put thousands and millions of women into small cages, force pregnancies onto them, then put big suckers on their tits to suck the milk out and bottle it for their whole lives. And when they have the baby's taken away and killed. That's basically what happens in the milk industry. So they're the facts. I'm not necessarily ranting against milk. You can drink and eat whatever you like, but this was just a video talking about the milk industry, like cornflakes, and they virtually invented breakfast. I don't think breakfast was a natural meal going back to ancient time. For me, for example, I wake up, drink a coffee, have a couple of toast. I've got no appetite in the morning. But the way our modern civilization's evolved, we've got to wake up, go to work, there's breakfast. Most people aren't hungry in the morning. You get hungry by mid-morning, more of a brunch, lunch. In ancient times, lunch and dinner was the big meals and so forth. So they virtually invented, with propaganda, a whole meal, breakfast, pushed cornflakes onto us, then all the other cereals packed full of sugar, which is bad for you. Sugar's a #1 health enemy, and milk, the dairy industry, they're all multi-billion dollar industries. No surprise, dairy, breakfast cereals, sugar. So I just wanted to make those points. Think of it what you will. I'll welcome your comments and views. Take care, and I'll see you next time.